Hello, my name is Toby Madden. I'm a regional economist here at the Federal Reserve Bank in Minneapolis.
And I'm Rob Grunwald, Associate Economist at the Federal Reserve Bank.
And we're going to provide the 2012 Regional Economic Outlook for the 9th Federal Reserve District, which includes Montana, the Dakotas, Minnesota, northwestern Wisconsin, and the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And we're going to base our outlook on a few things, including our statistical models, as well as two surveys. We surveyed 395 readers of the Fed Gazette, which is a business and regional economics newspaper, as well as 474 manufacturers that we surveyed in conjunction with the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development. And what these surveys are showing is that business leaders are optimistic about the economy for 2012. Rob, what happened in 2011?
Well, at this time last year, our forecasting models were projecting a moderate growth during 2011. And we saw moderate growth in employment. In fact, we saw employment growth just a little bit stronger than forecast. Unemployment rates, as they finished this year, are close to where our models were forecasting. Personal income grew a bit stronger than the forecast. And the home building sector was although it was slow, was better than forecast. Essentially, overall, the district has performed better than the United States in terms of employment growth. For example, looking back through the recession and during the recovery period, which started in the summer of 2009, where our state's employment levels are at and percent change is better than the United States. This is absolutely true for North Dakota, that has seen strong gains in employment as that state has been helped by the oil drilling activity there. In terms of employment over the past year, we've seen gains in employment in leisure and hospitality, manufacturing, strong gains in natural resources and mining, some decreases in government and construction. Now from here, we'll look forward and see what our forecasting models have to say about 2012. In terms of employment growth, the forecasting models are projecting that growth will accelerate somewhat in 2012. We're expecting to see the strongest growth in North Dakota. So let's turn to the survey results. What are the business leaders saying about next year?
Well, it's somewhat similar to the statistical models in that they're pretty optimistic about employment at their own companies. They're expecting to hire across the board from retail, manufacturing. However, services and construction are expecting pretty flat activity in employment, and agriculture is actually looking to maybe decrease employment somewhat. Now, what's happening with unemployment rates?
Well, the forecasting models are expecting unemployment rates to decrease modestly throughout the district. We expect to see these rates to be below the United States unemployment rate, except for the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, where the rate will still be stronger there. Turning to personal income growth, the growth that we saw in personal income during 2011 is expected to continue somewhat at that same rate in 2012. And what impact, Toby, will this stronger personal growth have on wages
Well, business leaders are expecting to increase wages in 2012 a little bit faster than they did in 2011, but still at only about a 2 to 3% rate. However, areas like North Dakota are expecting to increase wages even faster as they see very tight labor conditions there. In terms of prices, business leaders expect to increase prices because they're seeing higher input costs. And so across the various sectors, they're expecting to increase prices, except for the ag sector, which is expecting to see some decreases in prices. Let's turn to the ag sector. As you can see from this chart, drought intensified especially in Minnesota recently in the fall of 2011. Compare that to a year ago when the 9th Federal Reserve District was pretty much drought-free. In fact, there was too much water for planting in that it was tough for farmers to get into the fields, and they had delayed plantings. And so as a result, harvest suffered somewhat. Luckily, the prices were pretty strong, and so for the major district crops, corn, soybeans, wheat, prices remained robust in 2011. Even cattle and hog prices increased, so they saw some pretty decent conditions in 2011 and showed some nice profits. Looking ahead to 2012, as long as the drought doesn't intensify, 2012 should be a pretty good year because the U.S. Department of Agriculture forecasts prices for the main district crops to increase, as well as steers are expected to increase in price as well. Manufacturers also had a very good year in 2011, and they saw that their orders increased, their production levels increased, they increased their investment in plant and equipment, and they actually started hiring some people. And they expect this trend to continue into 2012, where they expect that they'll even get higher levels of orders and production, and that they're probably going to increase in prices, but also increase investment in plant and equipment and employment for their own operations. Now we have to turn to the housing sector, which isn't that good. The past 4 or 5 years, the housing sector has been really battered down. Home building has seen some very big decreases over the past few years. However, in 2011, home building rebounded somewhat, and actually home building started increasing from very weak levels. However, our statistical model, as well as our business outlook poll results, show that housing starts should decrease all across the 9th District in 2012. So, looking ahead to 2012, it looks like the economy should increase in the 9th Federal Reserve District.